Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Healed and Chilled. And today we have yet another awesome and amazing special guest. And you guys know how I like to do it. I like for the guest to have control of the narrative. So, if you would, in your own words, from your own point of view, can you please introduce yourself and we'll dive right into the interview?
Sure, of course. Well, first, thank you so much for having me on. My name is Rob Tracz. I'm a high performance coach, speaker, podcast host, and solopreneur. So I wear a lot of different hats, and I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So tell us all about what you do. So you're a coach. And so I know that there's a lot of different versions of coaches. So like what do you do specifically and how do you help your clients?
Yeah, so essentially, I'm a momentum mentor, is what how I would kind of package it. But I specifically help solopreneurs, individuals who've recently switched from hobby into side hustle, and small business owners really get unstuck and create momentum with the different projects and businesses that they're kind of starting. Working with people who are authors writing their first book, to authors writing their seventh book, up to CEOs kind of growing and scaling their business to multiple locations across the country, all the way down to just individuals who are picking up Ubering on the side as a side hustle and how to balance their everyday life with the work and different projects.
Absolutely. So when you say momentum, I know that we all have our own versions, but what does that look like in your client's life? Like what area of momentum are you really focused on?
Yeah, so in my coaching, I have six principles that I kind of dive into that really help generate and create what I call as prime performance. And most of the time, people coming to me who are feeling stuck or stagnant in one way or another, and that could typically be isolation, lack of support, or lack of clarity, or maybe their life and schedules are so chaotic that they're struggling to find time. Or maybe they're just low energy and struggling to find the motivation to get the ball rolling. So it really depends on the individual, but the through line here is typically people are feeling stuck for one reason or another. And what we do is we kind of get the ball started, just kind of pushing through different exercises and fun things to go through and really diving in deep and asking the hard questions to really move ourselves and level us up to the next stage.
Absolutely. And I think that that's so necessary because sometimes when you are growing, you kind of hit a dead zone where it's like, okay, what do I do next? And then there's so many ideas like, oh, I could go here, I could do that, I can do this. So how do you help your clients narrow in on like what they should do next? What's the next step? Or is it more like like you mentioned, it depends on the person or what their goals are?
Yeah, so essentially what we're doing is we're like bringing awareness into the play. So reflecting more consciously. And like you said, there are a lot of different things that pop up. There's different ways to kind of grow your business or level up your side project. And there's a lot of things. So you can kind of get distracted or pulled in different directions. And I think the key really is reflecting on, okay, what's most important now? How do we prioritize those things? And also, what are our strengths so we can play to those because one person might say, hey, this is the best route or what you should be doing or what you recommend to do, but you might benefit from doing that a little bit later if we go a different approach or a different strategy because of certain strengths that the individual might have. When I was first starting out, my background is actually in strength and conditioning. I got my
Okay.
master's in exercise science, and I was the individual who quickly scaled my book of business in the private strength and conditioning realm to the point where I was working 15, 16, sometimes 17 training sessions a day with clients. And I did that essentially for 3 years straight. And I thought I was being successful and had all this great success. What in was happening in reality, though, is everything around me was falling apart. My own health, my relationships, friends, families, everything started kind of crumbling. And it wasn't until I had made a conscious decision that something needed to change. And I had to reflect on what had happened, where I currently was, and really what I wanted to grow into next. And that reflection process brought that awareness. And that's kind of what I'm trying to share with others with different exercises and strategies so that they too can kind of get out of that stuck stage and really get to that next spot that they want to.
Absolutely. And I think you touched on something really important is that depends on where you are, what your next stage is, and really reflecting. Have you ever come across someone who might be a little apprehensive about the momentum? Because sometimes people, especially when it comes to their businesses or whatever they're creating, can be a little bit like, oh, or you don't like my baby, but it's like I'm not calling your baby ugly, but perhaps there's some ways you can maneuver in different ways. So, have you ever come across someone who is a little bit more apprehensive about evolving? And then, if so, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, so somebody who's, I guess, a little more apprehensive about changing, they might not be the right fit for me, right? So they
Mm,
might already be moving at a comfortable pace where they feel that they don't need to change anything. To keep in mind, like the individuals who I help are the ones who recognize that something needs to change, and they're not
mm,
really sure what it is or how to change or really what might need to change. So that's where we kind of sit down, game plan, kind of chop it up and figure out, okay, there's something's a little bit off. We're trying to do something and we're not really sure what that is. So it's like, okay, how do we shine some light in figuring these things out? And we work together to kind of game plan. And that's why I said, like, I don't have the proper blueprint that'll get you from A to Z because I don't know what I don't know. So we work together to see, okay, how do we change this, or what would be a good approach, or what do we think about doing this, or how about we look at this through a different lens, and together we create something so that it feels right for both of us. Obviously, for the individual, there's gonna be times where you need to push and step out of your comfort zone a little bit in order to grow, because that's where all real growth kind of happens. So there is going to be a certain degree of, okay, this might be a little challenging, but we have to be ready and confident to step up to that challenge.
absolutely. And I like that you said together because I think a lot of times people misunderstand that coaching doesn't mean like you're going to do the work for your client. It means you can guide them and help them and do it together. So, have you always been like a motivator, or was this something that you developed into as life?
Yeah, I think I've always found myself in like a leadership type role from my early days of athletics and different sports teams and always working together. And I think that really brought me into the coaching realm because sports became like my new family. My parents got divorced when I was super young. I switched schools pretty frequently as a kid. It was difficult to make and maintain friendships, and sports became a way of kind of creating my own new family. And we would always work together, obviously looking to win a championship. And then you're training hard on the field at practice, but then you're also spending a lot of time after practice bonding in the gym and family dinners or team dinners and such. And as I continue to grow, sports and fitness and physical activity was the cornerstone, and it became the gateway for my personal development journey. And then through undergrad and then grad school, it was harder and harder for me to find that team because as you're getting older, you don't typically play as many sports. And that made it easy for me to stay in the weight room and in the gym working with a lot of different athletes. And that's where that coaching kind of took place, and still working together with a lot of teams and coaching in front of like large teams down to small one-on-one. And that really inspired me and got me comfortable with speaking. So I guess as I've evolved into the next stage of my own personal journey and my coaching journey, stepping into this high performance realm, it made an easy transition into the speaking realm too. So I would be lying if I didn't say I was never nervous getting on stage, but there is a little bit of familiarity with it because of speaking in front of my teams as an athlete to then speaking in front of other teams as a coach and then now on stage. So, long-winded answer for you is yes, I think motivating and at least inspiring and lead by example, and then using my voice to hopefully inspire and educate others has been part of me and my whole journey so far.
Yes, and I always tell every guest if they say like something about long-winded, if you can't be long-winded on a podcast where you're being interviewed, I feel like you're not in the right podcast. So no worries about that. And the more detail I feel, the better because people are learning and I'm learning and everyone's learning and growing. So that's no problem. So you mentioned that you're also a speaker. So can you dive a little bit more into that? Is that more on the motivational side? And then how did you go from coaching, high performance coaching, momentum, and now you're in the speaking realm as well as coaching?
Yeah, it was kind of a crazy transition over a few years. So it feels like it really happened really quickly. But I guess now that I think about it, it's over the span of a few years. Once I got out of strength and conditioning primarily, it was okay, well, where else do I find other potential clients and small businesses? And I was finding myself going to different conferences and webinars and seminars and such. And through just, I guess, being around great individuals, one of my best friends started public speaking, teaching, and then I started going to a couple of his workshops and other workshops, and then eventually he brought me in to kind of facilitate some of his, and I work with other organizations to facilitate their workshops. So speaking is interesting because there's so many different ways that you can be a speaker and get paid as a speaker, from keynoting on conferences to small breakout groups to workshop facilitations to even just webinars and then podcasts even. So I think the speaking came in as a means to get in front of more potential people that I could work with. And then also nurturing the people that I am working with by leading them through group workshops and skill development and a lot of fun things. And to me, speaking is multifaceted and is really exciting for me because it is relatively new, even though I've been in it now for a couple of years.
That's awesome. I think that it definitely takes a courageous personality because even though I'm a talkative person, but is a difference between talking to your friends or even being shy and getting up on stage and all eyes are on you. You're the only person there. And I used to like dance and cheer, but it's very different when you're on stage and you're talking. So can you walk us through like what that process was and if you can remember what your first engagement was like, how did you feel? How did you work up the momentum within yourself to knock the ball out of the park and just keep going back?
Yeah, over the past 3 years, I would say I'm probably getting close to 200 talks that I've given. And if I remember back, the first I guess I would say the big one, my first big one that I had was at a conference. And yeah, I was super nervous and I didn't really know what I was going to say up until about like a week prior. And then really like the whole talk essentially came to me in my sleep one night. And I was like, whoa, this is going to be perfect. These are my points. And going through things. And I see a lot of young speakers, they try to write out their entire speech and then they try to recite it. And then that creates even more nerves. And that makes it stressful because you have an expectation for yourself for what you want to say. And then if you that puts more stress on it because if you don't say every word exactly how you intended to say it, that creates that, oh, am I going to get it right? Or how am I going to mess up? I don't want to forget this. I want to say that. But what really helped me step away from the nervousness and then into more of the excitedness is reducing that barrier by okay having the points that I want to talk about, knowing the different stories that I want to share that helps drive home the points of what I'm trying to say, and understanding that the through message and really just knowing that the audience doesn't know what I'm going to say. So if I do mess up, just to kind of keep flowing and just moving on to the next point and making sure that I deliver as much value as I can with each talk, as opposed to trying to impress myself by speaking or saying the exact right things, and shifting from the perfect words to a better message has really helped me in my own journey, at least.
I like how you also said trying not to focus on impressing yourself, but delivering a positive and heartfelt or whatever message. So, is that something that you also take to your coaching and what you teach your clients is understanding that sometimes you're going to have to adjust. Things might not always be how you planned it. but it doesn't mean that it's bad. Like, does that show up in coaching as well?
Yeah, actually. So the very first principle that I run through with a lot of my clients is about building resilience and understanding that we have to, there is going to be challenges and we do need to challenge ourselves in order to grow and get better and move forward and progress. And sometimes things are going to go really well. And when things do go really well, we also still have to keep our emotions in check and we still have to act with like pose and be respectful and be very put together. And then the same thing when things don't go very well. We want to make sure that we're still emotionally in check and we are still working within the boundaries. And you don't have, or most of us don't have that capacity or the resilience to handle those emotions going up and down. And what we need to do is we build that up through confidence and the challenges that we take on and just having that awareness overall of, okay, we are going to get through this, good or bad. There's going to be another day, and we want to make sure that we continue to show up. And consistency over the long run is what's really going to help us get better. So in business, when we have good days, or bad weeks and bad months and good years, we want to make sure that we're still showing up tomorrow to continue to deliver a good product or a good service or whatever it may be in our businesses and projects.
I definitely agree. And one thing that I definitely resonate with as well is purposely putting yourself in situations that cause you to be challenged, because I feel like that's where you develop courage. And the more you're challenged and you're purposely doing it, and even when you're not doing it on purpose, when you rise to the occasion, it does build that confidence muscle. And I do work with children as a children's confidence coach. And so I always try to instill in them that even if something feels hard, it's like it's because it's the first time. Then the second time, it might be a little bit more still might not be like amazing. You might not be excited about it, but every single time you work that muscle of confidence, you feel stronger and stronger. And so you mentioned that you have multiple principles. Now, without giving away your secret sauce, because that's what clients pay you for, but can you give us a high level overview of what that process working with you looks like and how those principles apply to your coaching style?
Yeah, of course. So revisiting the time when I was really burnt out and I was working all those hours and I just 3 years straight, not even taking a day off. I'm talking working Christmas and birthdays and Thanksgiving, all these different things. And in that time period, I referenced that as when I was stuck in robot mode. And robot mode isn't necessarily a negative thing because you operate efficiently, you get a lot done, and you can check off all the check boxes and hit the tasks. The problem is being stuck in robot mode for too long because you fail to tap back into human mode. And without going back into that human mode, you lose out on the awareness and that's of what's going on around you and how everything is feeling and such because you're just so robot, boom, 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 boom. And in that time period, unfortunately, my dad got sick with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and unfortunately, I wasn't spending as much time when he was still around as I should have. So I regret that to a certain degree, but thankfully, I was by his side, and when he had passed, and in that moment there, you would think that that would have been a wake-up call to maybe I should stop working so much, but that really just got me right back into work because that full schedule became a distraction because it was a little bit of a wake-up call of, hey, things aren't going well in the life that you're building, but I leaned into the full schedule as a distraction. And then about a year after that, it was a holiday weekend and a lot of people were away. So I had failed to fill that distraction, right? So I had this weekend and I was like, okay, well, what do normal people do on Friday nights and Saturdays? And I started thinking like, hey, okay, let me look at this. This is not necessarily what I want to be building. This business is it's great on paper, but it's not me. It's not what I want to be doing. And then in that moment, I realized recycling through what has helped me be so successful over the years. And it came down to just three little things. And that's what I help teach a lot of my clients now. And those became the three phases. And so it's all you got to do to be successful or generate some momentum to me is you got to look good, you got to feel good, and you got to do great things. Because and I don't use that in like looking good in like a vanity metric, but I mean like when you were looking good, you feel strong, you feel confident, you've got the energy, you've got the motivation to really handle anything that life throws at you. And then when you're feeling good, you operate with such clarity and focus, and you move so smoothly because it's effortlessly and efficient. And then finally, when you're doing great things, you begin to attract great people around you. And then that happens to just pop up opportunities left and right. And then you can really create this lasting impact with whatever you're trying to develop and grow. And those three phases each require two principles to be successful. So I shared earlier about the first principle being resilience and stepping up to the challenge because that helps us build that confidence. The second principle is all about intentionality, especially around what we consume. So, as my background in strength and conditioning, it's easy for me to talk about dietary nutrition and why it's important for us to eat and fuel ourselves with good quality foods. But I think we are starting to pay a little more attention now, but we still need to put more emphasis on our digital nutrition as well, because that's what's going to stimulate us and motivate us and inspire us. So when we're talking about principle number two, it's that intentional consumption around diet and digital realm too. And then that's what really builds up that looking good. And then when you get into that feeling good, it's about clarity. So we want to make sure that we're dialed in and we know our goals, we know who we are, we know where we've been and where we're trying to get to next. And once we have those dialed in, we get to principle number four, which is all about optimization. Do our rules and our routines that we follow every day match the life that we're trying to build, or are they kind of slowly pulling us apart? And when we kind of piece that together, and we know where we're going, then we're moving and feeling good. And then that final phase of doing great things, I had mentioned, we want to surround ourselves with strong support players. And I always talk about a strong team. So I have a team triangle framework that I run through where we kind of identify different players on our teams, our personal teams, like our coach, our captains, and the crowd that cheers us on. And that allows us to start to create new opportunities, which is the final principle of that luck creation. And luck really is just that preparation meeting opportunity.
Very well said. I love that.
Oh, thank you.
Of course. So can you tell us how did you come up with that philosophy? And it's clear that it's really ingrained in the way that you think, the way that you speak, and you're very passionate. So I'm just curious, what was there something specific? And then also, I wanted to also say sorry for your loss as well. I wanted to be very cognizant and aware of that. And then just to keep it a little bit light, can you tell us what made you come up with those six principles and the way that it all flows together? Because it is so fluid and just so succinct. So I'm just curious, how did that all come about?
Yeah, so I was it was that holiday weekend when I was just kind of hanging around. I'm like, all right, well, I want to do something more. And I knew there was more to me than just teaching squats and deadlifts for the rest of my life. And I've always been kind of like a personal development nerd kind of thing. I'm always reading magazines and stuff on how to optimize your habit, your morning routines, and things like that. So I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, well, what's helped me be successful throughout my life so far. And I had mentioned earlier that I had trouble making friends when I was a kid, and I found a lot of success through sports. And through the sports, I started to take care of my body a little bit more. And the more that I would take care of my body and train, the stronger I would get, and the more playing time I would get on the different teams. And the more playing time I would get, then the more friends I would have off the field. And the more friends I would have meant more birthday parties I'd get invited to. And if I wanted to go to the birthday parties, my mom made sure that I had to get my homework done, and so I needed to start to prepare a little bit. So if we're kind of flowing through that, like I started taking care of my body, I started pushing myself physically, and that really was the first step, and that's that resilience aspect or principle, and really pushing yourself and training, and then you're building a little bit of confidence, and then it was time for me to start to pay attention to what I was consuming so that I could have energy to keep playing. Because the more playing time would lead to more friends, and if I kept wanting to go to those birthday parties, then you had to get clear on, okay, priorities. School first, you're a scholar athlete, scholar first. So then I had to make sure that planning out my time. So if I want to go to Mike's birthday party on Friday, I got to get the project done by at least Wednesday so then I can review it on Thursday. That gave me that principle number three, which is the clarity of what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to achieve, and then how do I optimize that, making sure that I have time for different things. So that was principle number four. And for the longest time in my life, that was enough to help me get through life and be successful and help me get a 4.0 GPA in grad school and then build my business of personal training up to a point where I was working nonstop. And what I failed to realize was that there was two other principles to the success that I was looking to achieve. And that was you can't do everything by yourself. You can do a lot of good things by yourself, but in order to really do some great things, you need to, one, be okay with asking for help, and two, being open to the help. And you do that by getting around better, positive people and really having a strong mentor or coach and having a strong team captains around you and having that strong support crowd too that can cheer you on for when things are getting difficult. And then that became, okay, principle number five. I know I got to get better at communicating and talking with people. And then finally it was getting stuck and I couldn't quite get to that next level because I wasn't sure how to create more opportunity. And then I realize that there's more to it. You've got to lean into your uniqueness and you've got to understand your audiences that you're trying to work with and collaboration and then finally just keep showing up too. And that was the keys behind creating your own luck. And that opened up principle number six, which was the opportunity.
Yes, and I also love how you mentioned creating your own luck because a lot of times it's like it's easy when someone doesn't fully understand the full journey of how someone got to where they are. They're like, "Oh, you're just lucky because, you just happen to know X who gave you Y opportunity, so you got to do Z." But it's like, okay, but you're at the end of the alphabet. You weren't there for A, B, C, all these other things that was necessary to build so that you could even know X to get Y to be able to do Z. So I love the idea of creating your own luck because opportunities come to those who seek them. And now just because you got another opportunity because of something that seemed unconnected, it's likely some work that you put in previously that could afford that opportunity. Um, Also as someone who recently got out of the mindset of like go 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 like robot world, I know that it can be a shift mentally. So once you decided, okay, this is not going to work, how long did it take for your mind to catch up with the reality, like this is what we're doing now, this is the most healthy way? And did you have to fight internally with that side of you that's like, okay, but you're laying down, okay, but you're not doing this, how, or was it easy?
No, it definitely wasn't easy, and it did take some time. And I think so I knew myself that I wanted to be doing something different, and I knew that there was something out there, but I wasn't really sure what or how to identify it. And what was really slowing down my progress to get to this next stage where I'm at was the identity of who I created because of sports and because of my background in strength and conditioning and all the different accolades and the alphabet soup after my name for all the different certifications and such. It was difficult for me to kind of say, okay, I'm no longer a strength and conditioning coach. Now I'm evolving into more of a high performance coach. And for the longest time, that was hard because I didn't want to leave all that hard work behind. And one of my mentors told me, Rob, at the end of the day, you boil everything down. All coaching is life coaching. So don't like whether you're just teaching squats and deadlifts in the gym, you're still teaching somebody to be stronger and teaching them to build resilience and teaching them the confidence and everything else. And or if you're teaching a CEO how to grow his side hustle or how to branch out into different locations and such, it's all life coaching. It's about how to live life better. And he said, don't forget your identity, just evolve it and just grow into it. And once I kind of got a grasp on that, things started to just kind of fall into place. And then with the speaking and then my podcast and a lot of things on social media, everything's just started kind of clicking together in a really cool and unique way, which is essentially what I kind of teach in that sixth principle about luck creation. And once you lean into your uniqueness and understanding your audience and beginning to do all these other things that it really meshes together. So you do kind of feel like that overnight success, even though you do put in all that work, like you were mentioning before.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another thing I'm wondering is because you mentioned that you have a podcast, and so is there anything someone should do before they contact you to work with you? Like, are there any prerequisites or things that you're like, okay, maybe start here? Or if someone knows like they're ready, can they just like go straight and try to be one of your clients?
Yeah, I mean, I put out as much value as I can. So you mentioned earlier that the not to share the secret sauce behind the coaching, but I'm totally open. So it's like I've laid out my whole principles and pretty much how I go through everything with all my clients and the different tips and tricks on how to do that. You can essentially find through a lot of my social media content on the podcast itself and sharing through other individual stories. So there's all that information's out there, but when somebody does need a little bit more help with it because information is endless. You can find it. There's ChatGPT. You can access all these different things. But what people really need help with is implementation and how to implement and where, right? So going back to where we started in the beginning of our conversation, some people might be struggling with their digital diet or their or nutrition diet because they're not having that enough energy to kind of show up to the meetings or the long days, or maybe somebody is feeling a little isolated and they need to work on their social skills and influence abilities and such, or maybe somebody is a little low on their resilience and they're struggling to move forward because they get set off by every little thing or somebody cuts them off on the road and it ruins their day and they can't focus. So each person is going to have different things, and individuals who are interested in working with me, it's a simple conversation where we sit down like, hey, are we a good fit? Like, do you like me? Do I like you? Is what you're looking for something that I can help you with? And piecing it together. And depending on how that conversation goes, that's where we either decide to work towards the next step or not. But most of the time, all the information's out there on social media.
Fair, fair. So is there anyone that you would say, like, not trying to be rude or anything, but we're probably not a good fit? Like, don't even go to the consultation spot, or is it kind of like you'll feel it out afterwards?
Um, yeah, so there have been people that I've turned down in the past because we don't seem to be a right fit. So, kind of going back to what I was saying before, individuals who benefit the most from working with me know that there's something that needs to change and they are open to changing certain things. And in the past, I've worked with some individuals who are on board and they take all the information in, but then they can't have the truthful conversation with themselves and they're truthfully not ready to change, then it's like, okay, well, let's slow down. Let's revisit this down the road a little bit, and then we can have another conversation. But that is the part where it's like, okay, yeah, I am ready to change. Something should be moving forward, or I do want to create this momentum. And then others who aren't quite ready there, then no, it's not probably a good time for us to work together.
Fair, fair. And I feel like that's something that all coaches have to get to, but it can be challenging to say like, oh, I think you're a great person. However, you might not be a good fit for me specifically. So, how were you able to get past that and just like say, hey, it's nothing personal. It's just not going to work.
I think just being truthful and open right from the start, right? Being able to have the difficult conversations and that, like everything else we were talking about, is a skill that you kind of need to practice and get better at. And one of my mentors and good friends, he teaches a lot of this conflict resolution and communication. That's where I get a lot of my communication background from. And it's the placing a lot of emphasis on being straightforward, and sometimes it can come off as harsh, and that's why sometimes I'm not the best fit for everybody, but I try to be straightforward and explaining things right from the bat. So like, hey, this is going to be hard, this is going to be challenging, there are going to be things that you're going to be pushing your comfort zone, and if you're not ready or comfortable enough to push a little bit, like I'm not going to make you do anything too crazy, but like it's going to be a little bit forward and it's going to have to push the needle because that's what we're looking to do at the end of the day, right? If we want to create change, we have to do something different.
No, that's absolutely correct. So we're not finished, but I'm just curious, is there anything that you wanted to explicitly talk about or discuss that you haven't had the opportunity to elaborate on just yet?
I think just that in the out there in the world, there's a lot of different things. I know for myself, when I was looking to change and get into the whole different industry, I was joining lots of different coaching groups and different courses and consuming a lot of these different content around building my business and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And I think it's important to know though that it's okay to hear a lot of different things and get a lot of information from a lot of different sources. And I think at the end of the day, attracting individuals and groups and people that are most aligned with you is a game changer. And I know with a lot of different coaching groups and communities that I was a part of, they were close and there's nothing wrong with them. They just weren't right for me. And going back to like what we were just saying before, not I'm not the perfect fit for everybody, but when you do find somebody that is interesting or you do like the way that they talk and the way that they share and you can connect with them on another level, I think you should lean into that more because that's really where the magic is and really being comfortable with those other individuals.
Right. So if someone were to like, they're like, okay, I'm starting to feel the vibe, and they're a little bit like, well, now the question is like, well, what type of energy does your community bring? What can they expect? And it's I feel like it's clear, but just to make it like really crystal clear, what if someone were to join you or listen to your podcast or be and take that step to join your community, what type of atmosphere, team like bond would they get? And then another question to jazz it up. If you had to compare your community to a sports, like to some type of sport, what sport? That makes sense. Like, would it be baseball, basketball, soccer, or whatever? And then what does that team atmosphere look like that you've created?
Yeah, so individuals who even joining my mastermind group, which is a small group where we just kind of get together, asking hard reflection questions for the week around one of the principles that I teach, is a cool opportunity because we're getting together. There's that vibe, that energy of, okay, we're all looking to grow and build something and push a little bit further. And it's really unique because everybody wants to help each other move to the next level. So I would say the energy and vibe is growth oriented and very inspirational because we share a lot and we're not afraid to be vulnerable with the things that are difficult or the setbacks that we go through. And that really allows people to kind of connect on another level because it's easy to go on social media and just see success after success after success and everybody having the best day ever every single day. And it's refreshing though to know that other people are kind of struggling too with some of their businesses and different things, or maybe so and so lost a new client or somebody asked for a refund on one of their projects, and it's refreshing to see that that happens in everyday business and pushing each other and holding each other accountable and really motivating everybody. So it's not just me teaching from the podium, kind of so to speak. It's more of me sitting in the crowd and we're passing the baton around and helping each other grow and build together. And I guess if I were to connect it to a sports team, um, I would say I would say rugby, just because that's my sport after football and after playing college football, I moved over to rugby and I love it. It's rough, it's tough, so you know it's going to be challenging. Just like business and entrepreneurship, there's it's bumps and bruises, but you at the end of the day you work together. And in rugby, is different from football because football is always like, okay, give me the ball so I can score, and you're running down the sideline. It's all on you. But in rugby, it's more of, okay, let's work together as a unit. We got to move this ball down the field or down the pitch as a unit, and we got to share the love, and we got to be there for each other to support. If somebody gets tackled, you want your teammates there to protect you, and then you're moving it together to score or ultimately win together as a group. So my community, we are all working together as hard as we can, but we're also growing together and helping each other get to that next stage.
Okay. Rugby. Interesting. And they don't have like padding, right? It's like really tough.
Well, so that's part of it too. So in rugby, there you don't have pads, and that's what separates it kind of like from American football, where you are just running in at full speed, essentially trying to hit the person as hard as you can. And in rugby, there are hard hits, but you get penalized if you hit somebody too aggressively, and you have to bring them to the ground. So when you do make contact, you want to make sure you wrap up, and you don't want to hurt yourself either. So you are trying to stop each other, and it can be rough. But at the end of the day, once the match is over, there's a huge social component to rugby as well. So usually the home team hosts the away team for like a barbecue and some food, and you get together and you sing and you share stories about past matches and things. So that's why I think rugby is probably the closest comparison, because there is that huge social supportive community aspect to what I do as well.
I love that. I love that. And then just another question about your mastermind. Is it primarily for like men? That's who you're serving? Is it like men and women, or is it really anybody who wants to grow, develop, work as a team, but also like you said, like in business, there is competition, but it doesn't mean it has to be like a foul thing. It's just a part of growth and development. But just curious, like what does the community aspect look like? Is it more so for men or business people? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's right now we're pretty even split on 50-50 for men and women, and we've got people of all ages. We've got a young guy who's in college finishing up his undergrad, so he's probably about 20 or 21 years old, and he's got his side hustle, so he's trying to build that while juggling school. And
Mm.
we've got individuals as old as 78 who's like getting into the speaking realm, and now they're trying to grow and build their talks and such. And the mastermind is great because it's a mix of everything, and like anybody who's got a project or something that they're looking to progress with, or to grow, or to generate momentum with. And we work together in tough questions where we reflect and bring awareness on different aspects, like those principles I'll share. And it's just a cool little community where we get together on a weekly basis to kind of grow and ask ourselves the difficult questions.
Wonderful, wonderful. So before I ask you my three cliche questions I always like to end with, I'm going to give you a signature round of applause for sharing your story, helping people grow and being vulnerable and open, because I think it is huge that people realize just because you can help others, it doesn't mean you're not still growing. It doesn't mean that you're going to do the work for them either. It's an effort, and it's a rugby match in your world. So I love that. All right. So my first cliche question that I like to ask everybody is if you can think of a time when you were younger and in a darker mental space, what is one piece of advice you know now that you really wish you would have known back then?
Yeah, I think it would be back when I was stuck in that robot mode. And I think I wish I had known that there are other people out there, and it's okay to ask for help. And I was stuck in that lone wolf kind of mentality where it's like, oh, I got to figure this out. I got to push. Or because of my athletic background, it's like, oh, just dig a little bit harder, just grit it out and just push a little bit further. But it's okay to relax, and it's okay to chill out, and it's okay to ask for help and seek for help, and be open to the help that they're offering. And I think that was really something that I missed, because I was kind of leading my like running my head into the wall, basically trying to just overpower this thing called entrepreneurship. And to a certain point you can, and then eventually you're going to need to adjust and pivot.
Absolutely. I feel like I'm still learning that lesson, to be honest. But okay, my second cliche question is the internet works in very, very mysterious ways. So there's no way to know who's going to watch this or hear this at some point. Is there any person or organization that you would really like to work with if this comes across them?
Through my through the different organizations that I currently work with, I have incredible opportunities to work with a lot of different organizations. So, for example, I got to work with a very successful soccer team over in Europe a couple months ago, and working with them to kind of mapping out their dynamics of their team. And it was a really cool opportunity. And I get to work with like small businesses and large businesses. So I guess the ideal thing for me would be always open to new projects because I like the challenge. I am an achievement drive, but I'm also an adversity drive. So I love to step up to the plate and kind of try to figure it out, big problem solving. So any kind of organization that feels stuck, that's kind of thinking like, okay, how do I figure this out? Or I'm struggling to figure this out, or unsure of how to get forward or move forward. That would be a cool organization to kind of work with because that's essentially what I'm doing on a day to day. And I love the new challenges that come with that.
Awesome, awesome. And so then my final cliche question, of course, I'll put the your just link in the description as well. But if someone wants to work with you specifically, what's the best way to contact you? If someone has questions or anything like that, just wants to stay in tune with your journey, what's the best way to stay up to date? And what's the best and most effective way to actually work with you?
Yeah, so if anybody has any questions or concerns or they found anything that I said particularly interesting. I'm a huge fan of feedback. So if you're listening to this and you want to just chime in and let me know what you thought about anything I shared, the easiest place to kind of chat with me is social media. I'm predominantly hang out on Instagram and LinkedIn, and it's as easy as just searching my name, Rob Tracz, and that should pop up, or going over to my website or even survivingthesidehustle.com to kind of find the podcast is a great way. But robtrazy.com is also an easy place. I've got a free quiz on there that helps shine light on which principle might want to spend a little more time digging into. And then it's cool because you can take that different times of year in different seasons of your life and different emotional states because that'll let you know or shine awareness on which principles you really lean into more or less. And those are always easy ways to just kind of reach out. And if you're interested in working with me one-on-one or hiring me for a workshop facilitation or a keynote, it's easy to just reach out, or even the mastermind, which is a pretty low key, low commitment kind of thing to just do on a weekly basis to get a little tiny bit better each week.
Love that. Love that. And so before we go, I know sometimes you're like, oh my goodness, I really wanted to talk about this, but I forgot, or I really wanted to highlight this, but it slipped my mind. So is there anything at all that you're like, oh, last minute, I want to just leave us off with this or shed light on any projects or anything you have going on?
Yeah, I think one thing I'd just like to kind of say, or I'll just kind of wrap up with is I think we all have a lot of things going on. And I think if we just spend some time to just slow down and reflect a little more consciously, I think that's a powerful takeaway. So if you take anything from what I said today, is just try to reflect a little more consciously and just check in with yourself.
I definitely, definitely love that. Reflect with yourself, check in more consciously. Well, thank you so much, Rob, for joining us today. I know I got so much out of this conversation, and I know that the listeners also did as well. I am rooting for you and all the good vibes that you're putting out there. I love when people are helping others become better and using what you've learned and different things to grow. I feel like it's amazing and wonderful. And I'm excited for your journey. You're always welcome back. And I'll give you one more signature round of applause for woo! We love a round of applause. Yes, but yeah, this was wonderful, and thank you so much for joining.
Oh, thank you. This is my pleasure.
Mm.